Um, in the Northwest Territory, what happens now is you got to remember the American Army's goal was to retake Detroit. So what William Henry Harrison does is he builds Fort Meigs in Perrysburg, which is another fabulous facility that you can go see today.
And this is in
Perrysburg, Ohio. It's about 25 miles south of Monroe, it's probably 45 minutes down 75. And he builds Fort Meigs as a staging ground and a supply center to retake Detroit. What happens is there are two sieges in the spring and summer of 1813 to take that fort. As a matter of fact, they were led by Tecumseh and Proctor. Both cases, though, the British and their allies failed. The key to the whole Northwest Territory is the Battle of Lake Erie. When Oliver Hazard Perry defeats the British fleet at Lake Erie, that opens up all of Michigan Territory to be retaken. And what happens is Proctor vacates Detroit and actually leaves Detroit, so they never have to fight a battle to retake it. And they end up retreating into Canada, and Harrison follows them into Canada, and that's when the Battle of the Thames occurs. And that was in the fall of 1813, and Proctor is defeated and Tecumseh is killed.
When is the Battle of Lake Erie?
That's in September
of 1813, and so this opens the route then for Harrison.
That's right.
And the Battle of the Thames is
it had followed right after that.
So we're still in 1813.
That's right.
Late 1813.
And this is a actual portrait of the Battle of the Thames, and this is Johnson. This is Johnson's mounted rifleman, and Johnson is kind of an interesting story. He became Vice President of the United States. Never denied that he killed Tecumseh, but never, either way, he never said he did or didn't, but it helped him become Vice President of the United States. He's one of the ones that is referred to as possibly killing Tecumseh. But we have a uniform right here, and this is an example of what the Kentucky militia would have worn at the Battle of River Raisin and also the Battle of the Thames. And you can see they're wearing that uniform.
Was it still Kentucky militia involved then at the?
Oh yeah, yeah, and regular troops.
So some of these are veterans who have survived.
That's correct.
The Battle of the River Raisin.
Matter of fact, interesting tidbit about the battle. 9 counties in Kentucky are named after participants of the Battle of River Raisin. All died but one in the battle. This is a huge event in the state of Kentucky. When you go to Frankfort, Kentucky, they have a state cemetery where Daniel Boone is. They have a huge monument in the middle of that, and that monument was built after the Mexican War to honor Kentuckians who had fought in our wars up to that point. A good portion of that monument lists the officers that died at the Battle of the River Raisin.
You know, I think maybe it's worth kind of pointing out, at this time, Michigan is a territory.
Correct.
And most of the people living here are probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we've been settled by the French. They've been under French rule, British rule, now American rule. They're probably, not engaged, heavily on the American side, or they're just trying to survive while this fighting is going on around them. You don't really have too many American settlers in Michigan. You have some, but Kalamazoo hasn't been established yet. The first white settlers will come to Kalamazoo in 1828. So that's still, 16, 15 years in the future.
Right.
So you don't have an American population to draw from within Michigan. So the American soldiers that are fighting here, they've been sent here from Ohio, Kentucky,
Virginia, and Pennsylvania. We had 2 militias. We had the 1st Michigan Militia, which was out of Detroit. We had the 2nd Michigan Militia, which was out of Frenchtown. But when Detroit surrendered, they surrendered both those militias. You had about 100 local people from the Frenchtown area were involved in the battle. But if they were caught and proven to be part of the militia, they could have been executed.
Sure.
Most of them, though, were in hiding in Ohio or other places.
So maybe they were sympathetic, but they had to be very cautious.
Right. The other thing to your question was Monroe, alias Frenchtown, is the 3rd oldest settlement in the state. So you didn't have many settlements to start with.
Founded, was it 1600s? Was it founded
Oh,
in?
no. No, it was founded in 1785.
And that's the third oldest?
Right, Detroit's the oldest. 1701 was when Detroit was founded. The next oldest is St. Ignace at the Straits. Another interesting fact is this was a bit of a civil war. The local French Canadians that settled around the River Raisin bought or traded for their land from the Potawatomis. At the time of the battle, the Potawatomis were on a reservation, and it's called the Macon Reserve, and it was at Dundee, today's Dundee, and which is most famous for Cabela's today. But that's where they were located. They knew a lot of the local French Canadians who would have been on the American side. As a matter of fact, during the massacre, there are stories about local Potawatomis breaking into their houses, and they knew each other. Okay, and in some cases that saved their lives, being the locals. The other thing was, it's a bit of a civil war. Around the Windsor area, you still had numerous French Canadians also. Matter of fact, the Essex militia was almost split between British, or I should say English natives and French natives. The French Canadians there actually had relatives in Monroe. There are families that were fought for both sides that had cousins and uncles and so forth on both sides of the Detroit River. That, some would have been in the British forces, some would have been with the Americans. So it's kind of an interesting scenario of all the mix of the different peoples that were involved in the battle.
Dave, tell me a little bit about some of the events you might have coming up at the park. And in fact, I suppose, and it's a few years away, but you're going to have a big anniversary.
Yeah, matter of fact, we're going to have the bicentennial, and that will be, we'll start celebrating in 2012. Of course, our battle was 2013, and we're gearing up toward that. There's a lot of things we're doing. But we have some very exciting things that we're starting this year that we hope to prolong on up to and through the bicentennial. But this year we have some exciting things going on. In June, on June 9th, we have a fife and drum muster. And what that is you have numerous outfits that are from around the country are coming to Monroe for one day, and they're going to play all the different music from the period. You'll have colonial fife and drummers, 1812 fife and drummers, and Civil War era fife and drummers. But that's an event we're very excited about. It'll be our first year. Next year, we're expecting the colonial Williamsburg fife and drummers to come. So that will be quite an event. They're the most well-known in the nation. The week after that, we're having the Niagara in the Port of Monroe, and the Niagara was part of Oliver Perry's flagship
in the Battle of Lake Erie.
In the Battle of Lake Erie.
This
Very
is
important.
This is a replica.
It is, but it has original timbers.
It's been in South Haven before, so I've seen it, and I'm sure some of my constituents are familiar with it. They've had tall ship rallies in South Haven, and it's been part of those. And it's beautiful, and from what I remember, it is armed, and,
yes.
and it fires cannons from the lake, and it's very impressive.
Yeah, and we're very excited about it. We're trying also to get it back for the bicentennial commemoration, but fortunately we were told it was available, and the local historical society was able to secure it at this date. So
when is it again?
It's the week after June 9th. I think, what would that be? The 17th,
it's
15th, 16th, and 17th.
It's going to come up the river at all, or?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
Matter of fact, they have to build a special dock to dock it where they're going to dock it in Monroe. But we'll have reenactors out there with it. We may have fife and drummers.
You've got a great anniversary coming up. I want to thank you for being on my program, David Ingall, and for people in Kalamazoo, what you've been hearing about is the facilities, the museum in Monroe, just a 2-hour drive,
right,
and played an instrumental part in Michigan's history, and was the site of the biggest battle ever to occur within Michigan, the Battle of the River Raisin. Thanks for being on my program. We're out of time, and we'll see you next week.